They laughed at her wedding. Not the kind of laughter that rises with music and dancing. Not the happy, careless laughter of people celebrating love. This one was different. It came in whispers, in side glances, in the way some people covered their mouths but let their eyes do the mocking. It followed her down the aisle, sat with her during prayers, and waited patiently until the reception began. And now, 3 years later, that same laughter had returned. Stronger, louder, and sharper. Only this time it wasn't at a wedding. It was at her humiliation. The iron padlock snapped shut with a loud "kak" that echoed through the compound, cutting through the afternoon heat like a slap. Sade Adeyemi stood barefoot on the hot concrete, her wrapper loosely tied, her heart beating so fast she could hear it in her ears. The sun hung mercilessly above Oshodi, baking the cracked walls of the compound and drawing sweat down her spine. In front of her stood her landlady, Mrs. B.C. Lawal, hands planted firmly on her hips, lips pressed into a thin, satisfied smile. "Pack your load and get out of my house," Mrs. B.C. shouted. The words hit Sade like stones. She opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. Her throat felt tight, like someone had tied a rope around it. Around them, neighbors had gathered, some leaning against their doors, others peeping from behind curtains. Nobody stepped forward. Nobody defended her. Someone laughed quietly. That was when the shame truly settled in. Sade's life had never been easy, but she had always believed it would get better someday. She grew up in Ibadan, the last child in a family of 5. Their home was small, always noisy, always crowded. Her father was a carpenter who worked until his hands cracked and bled. When Sade was 14, he collapsed one afternoon and never stood up again. From that day, childhood ended. Her mother began frying akara by the roadside, waking up before dawn and returning home late with tired eyes and aching legs. Sade helped whenever she could, fetching water, hawking bean cakes after school, learning early that survival required strength. When she met Kunle Adeyemi, she thought God had finally smiled at her. Kunle was a commercial bus driver. He wasn't rich, but he was gentle. He listened when she spoke. He laughed easily. When he proposed, people warned her. He doesn't have a stable future. A driver's wife will suffer. You can do better. But Sade had already suffered enough. She wanted peace, not luxury. They married quietly. The wedding was small, too small for people's expectations. No grand hall, no flashy decorations, just a borrowed white canopy, plastic chairs, and jollof rice that finished too quickly. That was when the laughter started. Some guests whispered, "Is this all?" Others smiled politely but shook their heads. Sade pretended not to notice, but she did. She noticed everything. Marriage was not perfect, but it was warm. Kunle woke early and came home tired. Some days, money was plenty. Some days, it wasn't. But they shared jokes, dreams, and small plans. "We'll build our own house one day," Kunle would say, smiling. Then one rainy night, everything ended. A trailer lost control on the express road. Kunle's bus was hit. The news came like a storm. By the time Sade reached the hospital, Kunle was already gone. Her scream filled the corridor. After the burial, the world moved on quickly. She didn't. Kunle's family changed almost overnight. His mother stopped calling her "my daughter." His brothers avoided her eyes. Within 2 weeks, they told her to leave the family house. "You are young," they said. "Go and remarry." What they really meant was, "You no longer belong here." With her few belongings and her sewing machine, Sade left. That was how she found Mrs. B.C. Lawal's compound. Mrs. B.C.'s house was well known in the area. 6 small rooms arranged around a dusty courtyard. The toilet smelled constantly. The tap worked only at night. The walls were cracked and the zinc roof rattled whenever it rained. But the rent was cheap. Mrs. BC herself was impossible to ignore. Tall, loud, and sharp-tongued. She wore expensive lace wrappers and spoke as if the entire street belonged to her. At first, she seemed kind enough. "Widowhood is not easy," she said on Sade's first day. "But I don't tolerate nonsense in my house." Sade nodded eagerly. She needed peace more than comfort. For 6 months, everything went smoothly. She sewed clothes for neighbors, repaired old dresses, and sold chin-chin on weekends. She paid her rent on time, greeted respectfully, and kept to herself. Then things began to change. Food prices rose, customers reduced. Her sewing machine started making strange noises before finally breaking down completely. 1 month, she couldn't complete her rent. Just 1 month. She went to Mrs. BC early, her head bowed. "Please, Ma," she said. "I will pay next week." Mrs. BC stared at her like she was something unpleasant. "One story," she replied. "Everybody has a story." From that day, the harassment began. Mrs. BC shouted at her in the mornings, insulted her in front of neighbors, banged on her door late at night, poured dirty water near her doorstep. "Widow that cannot pay rent," she yelled once. The words burned. Neighbors watched in silence. Some sympathized quietly. Most said nothing. Then came the final blow. On that hot afternoon, Mrs. BC arrived with a new padlock. Sade had just returned from buying Gary when she saw it. Her door locked. Her heart dropped. "Madam, what is this?" she asked, panic rising. Mrs. BC didn't even look at her. "You have overstayed your welcome. But you gave me till next week." "I changed my mind." People gathered. Murmurs spread. Someone laughed. Mrs. BC raised her voice. "Anybody that cannot pay rent should not stay in my house." The padlock clicked. That sound echoed in Sade's chest. She felt heat rise to her face. Shame, anger, disbelief. Slowly, she picked up her small bag. No one helped. No one stopped it. As she walked out of the compound, tears blurred her vision. The noise of the road swallowed her sobs. Behind her, Mrs. Bissy smiled. She believed she had won. But as Sade stepped into the chaos of Oshodi traffic, clutching her bag tightly, a quiet thought formed. Small, stubborn, and dangerous. This is not the end. And somewhere deep inside her, something that had endured too much finally woke up. Sade did not sleep that night. She lay on the narrow wooden bench inside Bunmi's provision shop, staring up at the slow, tired ceiling fan that creaked like it was complaining about life. The shop smelled of detergent, kerosene, and ripe plantain. From outside came the restless noise of Lagos. Generators humming, buses honking, voices arguing over change. But inside Sade's head, everything was louder. Mrs. BC's voice echoed again and again. "Pack your load and get out of my house." The padlock sound replayed in her chest like a gunshot. The way people looked away. The small laugh she heard from behind someone's door. Her chest tightened. She turned on the bench, hugging her knees. Tears came silently at first, then freely. She cried for Kunle, for the home she lost, for how easily people treated her like she didn't matter. By the time dawn crept in through the shop's dusty window, her tears were gone. In their place was something unfamiliar. Resolve. When the first call to prayer floated through the air, Sade sat up slowly. Her eyes were swollen but clear. One thought settled firmly in her mind. I will not beg again. She returned to the compound later that morning. The sun was already high, and the courtyard smelled of damp concrete and boiled beans. Some tenants paused what they were doing when they saw her. A few whispered. Others stared openly. Mrs. BC was outside, sweeping aggressively, her wrapper tied tight, her mouth set in a hard line. Without looking at Sade, she spoke. "You have 3 days. After that, anything inside that room belongs to me." Sade nodded. "Thank you, Ma." Mrs. BC stopped sweeping. She looked up sharply, as if she hadn't heard well. That was not the response she expected. No crying, no kneeling, no begging, just calm acceptance. It irritated her deeply. Sade unlocked the door under supervision and carried out her sewing machine slowly, carefully, like something sacred. She wiped it clean with the edge of her blouse, ignoring the eyes watching her. As she walked away, she felt it. Mrs. Bissie's stare. Hard, suspicious, uneasy. Something had changed, and Mrs. Bissie could sense it. The black SUV arrived that afternoon. Its tires rolled quietly into the compound, drawing everyone's attention. Children stopped playing. Women paused mid-conversation. A woman stepped out. She wasn't flashy, but everything about her spoke of confidence. From the way she walked to the way she scanned the compound with calm, observant eyes. She held a brown leather file close to her chest. "Good afternoon," she greeted. Her voice was steady. "I'm looking for Mrs. BC Lawal." Mrs. BC appeared almost immediately, adjusting her wrapper, lifting her chin proudly. "I'm the one," she said. "Who are you?" The woman smiled politely. "My name is Tola Akinwale. I work with a legal firm handling land verification and historical property ownership in this area." The word verification landed heavily. Mrs. BC laughed, but it sounded forced. "Verification? This house has been mine for years." Tola nodded slowly. "Yes, that's why we're reviewing it." She asked questions. "When did you acquire the property? Who sold it to you? Were documents registered officially? Were there witnesses?" Mrs. Bissie answered fast. Too fast. Her voice was loud, confident, but her fingers fidgeted with the edge of her wrapper. She shifted her weight from one foot to another. Sade, watching from her corner, noticed it. Fear. That evening, Tola knocked gently on Sade's door. "I hope I'm not disturbing you," she said. Sade hesitated, then stepped aside. The room was small, hot, and sparsely furnished. Tola sat on the edge of the bed and placed her file on her lap. "I need to ask you something personal," she began. Sade nodded. "Did your husband ever talk to you about land? About property in this area?" Sade frowned. "Why would he?" Tola inhaled slowly, carefully. "Because according to old records, this house originally belonged to your husband's family." The words felt unreal. Sade's heart skipped. "What?" Tola opened the file and spread out photocopied documents. Old receipts, faded maps, handwritten agreements with names Sade recognized. "Your husband came to see me 2 years ago," Tola said quietly. "He suspected something was wrong." Sade's hands trembled. "Kunli never told me." "He didn't want to burden you," Tola replied. "He said you had suffered enough already." Tears welled up. Tola explained everything. Years ago, Kunle's father owned the land. When he died suddenly, documents went missing. Mrs. BC, who was then only managing the property as a caretaker, later produced ownership papers and claimed the house. Kunle noticed inconsistencies. He began asking questions. He started visiting offices, talking to elders,